Tuesday, and welcome once again to News Talk on SantaCruzVoice.com. I'm Charles Freedman. Let's go forward. That's right. Once more, it's time for News Talk from 9 to noon. Pour that second cup of coffee, kick back, relax, and get ready to participate. And get ready to participate in more ways than one. The telephone number to reach the program is 831-265-5050. Join me. Make that call, ask your question, make your comment, raise your topic, and you do get to do that. I am unique in the world of talk show hosts in that I offer any caller the opportunity to raise any topic, anytime. Wow, liberty. Okay, to begin today's program, I have a article here. I believe I found this in yesterday's paper, but I wanted to take some time to think about it and then discuss it with you. The article says, the headline, it's subsidies or shutdowns for Democrats. And the article concerns, there's a picture here of Senator Schumer and Minority Leader Jeffries, the House and Senate Democratic leaders, and what their strategy is now, what they want in order to not shut down the government. Now, coming up later on in this month, there's an end to spending authority, legal spending authority. Congress has the power of the purse. The executive cannot spend money that has not been appropriated by the Congress. Joe Biden thought he could, but the courts shut him down. So this is still the way the Constitution is written. It's still the way we do business. And that means that even though Democrats are in the minority, they have some say over this because these appropriations bills, these spending bills, have to pass both the House and the Senate. And in the Senate, they're subject to debate. And in order to shut off debate, you need a vote of 60. There are only 53 Republicans in the U.S. Senate. So if Democrats stand together and say, no, we will not shut off debate, they can't defeat the measure. What they can do is simply keep it from ever getting to the floor for a vote, which has the same effect, you see. If the debate never ends, if the measure never makes it to the floor for a vote, then the clock runs out and the government shuts down. So the Democrats have this leverage that they can use. So, obviously, when somebody has leverage, what do? They use that leverage. Well, the question then becomes, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And that's what I'd like you to focus on right now. The reason I think this is so important, the reason I'm presenting it to you today, a couple of times on this show, I have made a presentation to this effect. I have talked about the coming crisis, I mean real crisis, for the United States of America, a debt crisis. I have talked about the fact, remember, this isn't speculation, this is fact. Last year, not this year, not next year, last year, for the first time, the federal government had to spend more money on debt service than on defense. That's right. Let that sink into your head. It took me a while to wrap my neurons around it. We think of the defense budget. My God, that's a lot of money. That's hundreds of billions of dollars. All those battleships and airplanes and all those bases to maintain and all those men to, and my God, bucks. Well, yeah, it's true. A lot of money to fund the military establishment of the United States of America. And last year we spent more money than that paying interest on the national debt. A national debt which continues to grow. This year's deficit is projected at something on the order of $1 trillion, I believe. So now we're adding to the national debt $1 trillion at a time. And the main drivers of this debt are the entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, which are on autopilot. Remember when Mr. Trump got elected, he brought in DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Elon Musk said, we're going to cut $2 trillion out of the federal budget. They did about 1/10 of that. By the time DOGE had finished running around, they actually managed to find some $200 billion in savings. That's a good thing. I'm all for it. But it's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't solve the problem. The problem is only solvable by systemic alterations in the major drivers of debt. And our president, right now, is a man who has run for president not once but 3 times. Twice victoriously, once he lost, but each of those times he has promised, elect me and I will not do a thing about this. Think about that. The American people have voted for a man who has given his solemn word not to confront the biggest issue facing the country. Wow. Now that creates a hell of an opening, doesn't it? If the Republican Party and its leader are now on record, we won't do anything about it. You know, the Republicans used to be interested in this kind of thing. But that was then. That was when we had guys like Newt Gingrich as Speaker of the House. That was when we had guys like Paul Ryan. They're all out of politics now. They're gone. Donald Trump is the head of the Republican Party, and he says no, under no circumstances will we do anything about this. So, he's leaving a huge opening, isn't he? We have 2 parties in this country, and traditionally, if one party, whichever one, left a political opening, an opportunity, the other party would immediately rush to get right through there and, hey, we're gonna hold you to account. We're gonna do better than you. At this point, the Democratic Party has a huge opportunity. They could come before the American people and say, look, we're going to be facing a huge debt crisis presently if something isn't done. And Donald Trump has said he will not do it. So here we are, we Democrats, saying we're going to get the job done. We're going to put forward the ideas. We're going to lead this, and we'll have to have obviously input from congressional Republicans that these things aren't done unilaterally. That was one of Mr. Obama's contributions to American politics, was when he enacted Obamacare unilaterally, straight party line vote. First time that had ever been done. Set a very bad precedent. You're not supposed to do big things like that on your own without any input or buy-in from the other side. Because then the next change of administration, what happens? The other side is now in power, and they just do their best to rip down everything you built. Because they have no buy-in. Well, obviously, if Social Security and Medicare are ever to be reformed and put on a more solid fiscal basis, it will require both parties to work together to do it. That's essential. But right now, the Republicans have taken themselves out of the equation. They say, their leader, Donald Trump, says, no, I won't do it. So Democrats have this opportunity now with this upcoming shutdown. They could say, okay, it's time to deal with these big issues, and unless you're willing to work with us and deal with these big issues, we'll shut down the government. We'll let this spending authority run out. That's what they could do. But no. Instead, I refer you back to the headline that I shared with you a few minutes ago. It's subsidies or shutdown for Democrats. Party says restoring billions in health insurance credits is the price of their vote. Not only are the Democrats not taking advantage of the opening that President Trump has offered them, no. They are now promising, pledging, unless the problem is made worse, unless additional billions of spending are piled on top of what already we're doing, this is what they're fighting and dying for. We're headed toward a cliff, and the Democrats are wanting to step on the gas. This is amazing. And of course, the Democrats are thinking, as do all political parties, are thinking of the next election. So obviously, the Democrats believe that fiscal responsibility, maturity, the willingness to deal with the big problems are losers. That the American people will turn away from politicians who are serious about such things. You know who else thinks that? Donald Trump thinks that. After all, we just talked about, he ran for president 3 times. Each time he promised, I will not deal with this problem. I won't. And 2 out of 3 times he got elected. And again, as I've mentioned, the people, mostly Republicans, who've been serious about this, they're all lost. Politically lost. They're all out of office. We don't hear from them anymore. So, what can I say about the political judgment of President Trump? He was right. What can I say about the political judgment of the Democrats? Well, I guess we'll have an opportunity to measure that when the votes are cast at the next midterm election. But they're obviously betting that the American people want more spending. More spending. The government has to run a higher deficit, pile more money onto the national debt. That's what the American public is demanding, and that's what they'll vote for. And that is, I guess that's the biggest single reason why when people ask me, oh, well, where's the country going? I say it's going straight to hell. A country that has ample warning that it is on an unsustainable track and yet doubles down on that unsustainable track and dismisses anyone who attempts to get serious about it. So are the Democrats responsible for this? Are the Republicans responsible for this? Or is it the American people? We the people are the first 3 words of our Constitution of the United States. We have politicians now, people who are in the business of trying to get elected, seeking votes, and they make the judgment that unless I promise not to be serious about this problem, unless I promise not to do anything serious about it, unless I promise to continue going down the same path, I will lose. The American people won't vote for a candidate who's serious about this. And that seems to be the truth. That seems to be the truth. (831-265-5050) is the telephone number. 831-265-5050. I'm looking at this piece that inspired this rant. The next federal funding deadline is weeks away. Democrats say restoring billions of dollars in health insurance subsidies for Americans is the minimum price for their vote holding the threat of a shutdown over Republican heads. Democrats are more confident in their negotiating stance compared with March, when a similar attempt to play hardball fizzled, while today's talks pit them against Republican leaders who want a 2-month spending deal with no big additions. They are finding support among rank-and-file GOP lawmakers feeling political backlash if their voters are hit by higher health insurance bills next year. So here's Obamacare coming home to roost. Obamacare wipes out a lot of the private insurance market, people who had their policies that they'd purchased themselves, people who had policies through labor unions that they work with and that have set up these policies with employers. Hard-won benefits, all gone. Obamacare comes in and says, no, those policies are no good. You need a better policy than that. Well, a better policy is more expensive. This policy it meets my needs. I'm happy with it. I'm paying for it. I've got it. No. Once again, you have the government coming between a willing buyer and a willing seller and saying, the bargain you made and both agreed to is bunk. We won't allow it. The proper answer to something like that is, what the hell business is it of yours? Get out of here. But of course, you can't say that to the federal government. You can't say that to the state. The state doesn't get out of here. The state says, oh, no, we can tell you what to buy, what not to buy. So here are these government insurance policies. Well, these are very expensive. Oh, don't worry about that. We'll give you the money. We'll subsidize the cost. What could possibly go wrong? And now the Democrats see this, and of course, Obamacare is one of their crown jewels. After all, they're the ones who passed it. Well, we had to pass the bill, remember, to find out what was in it. Now we're finding out what was in it. Stamp on the accelerator while we're headed toward the fiscal cliff. That's what was in it, in a nutshell. It's only one example, of course. I mean, to blame the entire federal deficit on Obamacare is ridiculous. There are many, many other things like Obamacare, in that they drive deficits and they defy reform. Because any time a political figure, someone seeking office where they can actually do something about it, you have to be in office in order to fix problems. You have to actually hold office, hold power. Then you can do something. Right now, who am I? I'm sitting here at a microphone in my garage. Can I do anything about any of this? Hell no. I have no power. If I were President of the United States, obviously, I would have the opportunity to well, for one thing, I would be addressing the country. I would be arousing people to this and telling people, look, this really is an existential crisis. You hear that term way too much these days. This really is an existential crisis. This overwhelming mountain of debt. And you could explain it to people. You could say, hey, you know people, you may have gone through bankruptcy yourself. You may know people who've gone through bankruptcy. It's a big deal. But at least for a private individual who finds themselves overwhelmed with unsustainable debt, there's a way out. You go through bankruptcy. The Constitution of the United States prohibits the federal government from going bankrupt. Full faith and credit is what's called for. The government of the United States is called upon to actually meet its responsibilities, to repay money that it borrowed. This is why U.S. Treasury bonds have always been regarded as just about the safest investment you can make. They are absolutely ironclad, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. So what happens when the irresistible force meets the immovable object? Under the Constitution, the federal government must redeem its debts. But what if the money simply is not there? What if the debt becomes irredeemable? And we are already to the point, once again, where debt service is larger than the defense budget. Presently, debt service may be even larger than the budget for Obamacare or for Social Security. Wow. What happens then? I'll tell you what happens then. The country collapses. The fiscal, the United States of America goes bankrupt. It would make 1929 look like a picnic. And we have been set on this course for years. I can remember people when I was a young man working the numbers and saying, sometime in the early part of the 21st century, we're going to hit a wall. Well, we're now in the early part of the 21st century. It's as if the captain of the Titanic, or the lookout on the Titanic, spotted the iceberg a mile off. And told the bridge, hey, we got an iceberg dead ahead. And the bridge said, oh yeah, that's nice. Shut up. We don't want to hear about it. Aren't you going to reverse the engines? Aren't you going to change course? Hell no. Well, of course, that didn't happen with the Titanic. The instant the iceberg was spotted, all kinds of emergency measures were undertaken, but it was too late. With the United States of America, we've had plenty of warning, ample time to make adjustments. We just decided not to. It's 9:30. I'm Charles Freedman. The telephone number to reach the program, 831-265-5050. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. I thought I'd share a few statistics with you. Do you know how long a frog can hold its breath? 4 minutes. Do you know how many nails the average roof requires? 7,000. What's the percentage of roofing companies that will be out of business after they've installed a roof? 80%. Here at Knox Roofing, we're still going strong, exceeding 15,000 homes now. Give us a call here at Knox Roofing at 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-414-1657. 800-414-1657. That's 800-414-1657.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold. We are offering a 100% risk-free gold guide. Gold continues to make new highs. And unlike stocks, gold has never been worth zero. You owe it to your nest egg and future to own some physical gold or set up a gold-backed IRA. Call right now for your free report.
800-414-1657. 800-414-1657. That's 800-414-1657.
It's high time to celebrate the opening of the new Hook Outlet Dispensary, 1129 Mission in Santa Cruz. Get in on the opening fun and really low prices on the Hook's unmatched selection of top-quality medical and recreational cannabis flower, vapes, drinks, gummies, and concentrates. The Hook Outlet is now the West Side's source for finest cannabis at the lowest prices. Get in on all the opening fun and low prices at the all-new Hook Outlet. HookOutlet.com for details and deals.
At 9:31, welcome back to the Charles Freedman radio program News Talk on SantaCruzVoice.com from 9 to noon every weekday. 265-5050, the telephone number. Okay, I'm going to very briefly excoriate a particularly odious individual. Not on a personal level. I mean, I don't indulge in personal attacks here. But this is one last Bronx cheer to Joe Manchin, late senator from the state of West Virginia, a Democrat. Now, I've talked about Manchin on this program before. During the Biden administration, Joe Biden and his leftist administration poured trillions of dollars of extra federal spending. Now, just the federal budget rocketed up. So, once again, this is accelerating towards and Joe Manchin, he says, well, I don't believe in this. I don't want this. But he remained a Democrat, and he voted for the bills. Oh, well, I got a measure on a pipeline for... Please, Senator. You got nothing. And you voted for trillions in extra spending. And this was at a time when the Senate was divided 50-50. The only reason the Democrats controlled the Senate was because in the event of a tie vote, the vice president, who is the constitutional president of the Senate, breaks the tie. That vice president was a Democrat, Mr. Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris. And she, incidentally, set a record for casting more tie votes than any previous vice president. So this was a crucial time when the Senate hung on a single vote. Joe Manchin's vote. Now, why am I talking about him today? Well, he's back. He's back. Now, there is this report. Here we have former Senator Joe Manchin, independent of West Virginia. That's right, he left the Democratic Party. But did he actually join the Republicans? Oh, no, he became an independent, like Bernie Sanders. So this pusillanimous pile of political cowardice, he left the Democratic Party, all right, but he became an independent, and he continued to caucus with the Democrats, like Bernie Sanders does. Well, Bernie Sanders is at least a real Democrat. Joe Manchin said, oh, no, I don't go along with all this stuff. Former Senator Joe Manchin wanted Republicans to win the Senate last year in order to present Democrats' pursuit of raw political power. In his new book, he's written a book, don't buy it. Don't give him your money. Dead Center, in Defense of Common Sense, set to be released on Tuesday and obtained by Fox News Digital. The former West Virginia Democrat turned independent ripped into his ex-political party, tore into former President Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and blasted Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer while lauding the relationship he had with President Trump. Joe Manchin, it's difficult not to get personal. All you had to do, Senator, you didn't have to pray for a Republican victory in the election. You were one of 100 members of the U.S. Senate. One of 50 Democrats. All you had to do was push your desk across the aisle. Other senators have done so. Not just, I'm leaving the Democratic Party and becoming an independent, but I'm still staying here with my Democrats. No. You leave the Democrats and become a Republican. But Joe Manchin couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. I don't know why. This is one of those things. If I had him on the program here, I would suspend for a moment my utter contempt for the man, and I would civilly ask him, if this is how you felt, sir, why didn't you do the one thing you could have done to stop all this? You could have changed the course of American history by simply moving your desk across the aisle and joining Senator McConnell and the Republicans. At that point, McConnell would have been majority leader. Can you imagine how much different Joe Biden's first term would have been with Mitch McConnell running the U.S. Senate? We're talking a completely different ballgame. And again, one vote was all it took. And Joe Manchin had that vote. So now he made waves when he and former Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona, who also left the Democratic Party to become an independent. Why these Democrats, they leave the Democratic Party, but they won't become Republicans. I guess they don't seem to understand that in Congress, in a legislative body, it's a team thing. There are two teams. I've heard, well, I'm not a member of either. I'm in the middle of the road. You know what's in the middle of the road? The white line and dead armadillos. At the end of the day, in Congress, on any given measure, how many ways can you vote? Yay or nay? Or you can simply not vote. So there is a third option. You can just say, I'm not gonna take a stand on this at all. Well, we don't elect senators and representatives to go to Washington and not vote. On any measure, there is a preferable vote. Now, I've criticized Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky because he votes no on everything. Well, the reason he does that is because nothing's good enough. Mr. Massie is a utopian. He wants what he wants, and he won't vote for anything else. So effectively, he's removed himself from the gene pool. He isn't not voting, he's just voting no on everything. Senator Manchin could have better served the country by taking up Mr. Massie's idea, simply vote no on everything. But being a Democrat and being a member of the Democratic caucus in the U.S. Senate, he went along with these people whom he, now in his book, Biden was terrible, Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, was terrible. If you felt that way a few years ago, why did you not vote no? I cannot express to you the revulsion I feel and the contempt for this man who now comes before us, writes a book, expects to make money out of it, I guess, telling us, oh, this was all so horrible. He recalled that vote in his book and the pressure he felt from Schumer and Senate Democrats to fall in line. This is the time he voted against ending the filibuster. That's the one time he voted no. But on everything else, he voted yes. on the trillions of dollars in spending. You want to know who to blame for the damn inflation? Joe Manchin. Biden asked for it, but once again, read your Constitution. The president can't spend money. He has to get it from Congress. And Joe Manchin, with his single vote, enabled all of that. You can blame the inflation of Joe Biden's first term on Joe Manchin. And now here he is telling us how upset he was about voting for all these things. Well, then why in the hell did you do it, you mumbling jackass? Manchin accused Schumer of wanting a vote he could broadcast to the radical left to prove his loyalty. So he's making the whole book, see, about the one time when he wouldn't go along. A procedural vote to end unlimited debate in the U.S. Senate. Oh, this is something, incidentally, the next time there's a Democratic Senate, you can bet on this. That's going to happen. If you are interested in maintaining the Senate as it has been, the world's greatest deliberative body, you better pray the Democrats never get another majority in it, because they are dead set on turning it into a mirror reflection of the House of Representatives. 51 votes, you can do anything. In the Senate, the rights and prerogatives of minorities have historically been respected. It's one of the reasons our republic has prospered so well over the years. The modern left wants to run roughshod. And again, when did this start? It started with Obama and Obamacare being hammered through Congress on straight party line votes, with no input from Republicans, no interest in appealing to Republicans, getting their votes, nothing. It's just, we're going to do this, and we have the votes, and we will outvote you, and that's all. Just how bad was that? You've heard me excoriate Lyndon Johnson for all the horrid stuff that he passed during the 89th Congress. At that time, he had huge congressional majorities. Johnson literally did not need any Republicans. He had the numbers to do what Obama did, but he didn't do it. And why not? Well, give him credit. He had been in the Senate for years. He'd been a Senate leader. He understood that in order for things to be permanent, and he wanted to make sure that the things he did would last. And so, in spite of the fact that he had overwhelming Democratic numbers, nevertheless, he and congressional Democrats reached across the aisle to the Republican minorities in the House and Senate and brought them into the legislative process. He said, look, this is what we're doing. We want you to be involved. We want your suggestions. We want your fingerprints on this. We want your input. And of course, once you have input, once you have buy-in, what's the next thing that follows? Well, you're going to vote. So, Great Society measures in the 1960s were passed with bipartisan votes. Why? Because Lyndon Johnson and the Democrats understood that by doing so, they would enhance legitimacy and longevity. And it's a shame, because a lot of that Great Society garbage is still on the books 60, 70 years later, and has never been seriously challenged. Barack Obama had also been a senator, but only for 4 years, and had never been a serious member of the U.S. Senate. He got elected to the Senate and promptly set about the business of running for president. He had a record in the Senate of absenteeism. Most of the time he wasn't there, didn't cast votes. He was doing other things, trying to get elected president. And of course he was. But unlike Johnson, Obama had absolutely none of this idea of, well, in order to make things last, you have to do them in a bipartisan manner. Instead, Obama came out of Chicago, where Republicans were simply nuisances, not to be paid attention to, not to be taken seriously. If you have the votes, you steamroll them, and that's what he did. Chicago-style politics comes to Washington. What could go wrong? And Joe Manchin now says, well, I didn't like all this. Well, then why did you remain a Democrat? That's the only way you could register serious opposition to this. The only way you could prevent this spending. Because of what I knew, Manchin said, because of what I'd seen firsthand, I wanted Republicans to win the Senate majority in 2024. I believed it was the only hope for preserving the Senate as an institution. I truly believe that if in power, Republicans would uphold the filibuster, the last guardrail preventing total partisan rule. So I guess, if we're to believe Mr. Manchin's book, that was the thing that he wouldn't go for. And he understood, that this was a vital thing in the Senate. Okay, good for him. And that one party was determined to break it and the other party was determined to maintain it. And he was absolutely would not join the party that wanted to maintain the Senate. Oh, I left the Democrats. Did you become a Republican? Oh, no, didn't do that. But even after that, even by that time, the horse was out of the barn. Mr. Manchin wants to dedicate his book. Evidently, this is what he's written about more than anything else. This is what's talked about here, was his stand against ending unlimited debate. But prior to that, he had already voted again and again and again for trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in spending. He had already enabled the budget to be blasted wide open, the deficit to be run to incredible, unprecedented levels, even higher than Donald Trump. And inflation to be let loose upon the land. I guess he doesn't want to talk about that. He also outlined an early fight he had with Biden, where when Democrats were trying to ram through the $2 trillion American Rescue Plan, it was in the early months of his presidency, in an evenly divided Senate, Manchin rejected it. As the drama began, I got a call from the president. He was hot. You kill this bill, I'll never speak to you again. Anyone who knows Joe Biden knows he's got a very bad temper. I call it unfortunate, but if he was going there, so was I. Your actions are reckless. You're sending a check to everyone, and if you missed anyone, it was only by mistake. The legislation ultimately passed after a compromise was reached, but Manchin noted he later regretted capitulating on the American Rescue Plan. As I was reading this here, I was thinking to myself, well, the way this is written, it didn't pass, but I know it did. Okay, well, just read a couple more sentences and we'll get to it. My God. Okay, we've got a call, and we've got 10 minutes. That's great, plenty of time. Let's go ahead and talk with Evan. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Hey, appreciate it, Charles. Yeah, I'd like to just kind of discuss what you were talking about. I think the first part of your show, spending more on interest than on defense.
Yes.
I'm kind of wondering just your thoughts on the Pentagon failing audits, 7 audits. And I'd like to just have your thoughts on maybe auditing the Pentagon more.
That sounds to me like the definition of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It really does. We need a defense establishment. I mean, if you don't think so, I would refer you to Mr. Putin, Mr. Maduro. You know, there are real threats, Mr. Xi Jinping. So we do need a defense establishment. Do we need to make sure that the money we spend on our defense establishment is not wasted, is spent effectively? Well, when Mr. Musk and his Doge people descended on the Pentagon, they should have been welcomed with open arms. Hey, if you can help us if you can make sure we get a bigger bang for our buck, you're doing good work, and we're happy to have you. I have no problem with auditing the military budget insofar as, you know, if you want to discover waste, fraud, abuse, I'm all for it. But the idea that you are going to balance the budget by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse is simply wishful thinking. There is waste, fraud, and abuse, but not enough to fix this problem. If we want to really get serious about the national debt and about our deficit, we have to go far beyond waste, fraud, and abuse.
So just your opinion, even if there was waste, fraud, and abuse in the Pentagon, and I think there is 7 audits are failing.
It's inevitable.
Granted, I don't want to see our defense budget go down by any means, because granted, if there's any fraud, abuse, or anything, you would think there'd be some deficit, some form of someone saying, "Hey, we don't need all this military spending." But then, with I think probably, and let me not speak for you, but I would think Mr. Charles would say, I don't. Spending on defense probably isn't is probably great because we have a lot of problems in other countries.
Well,
do you agree?
I would say this: if say we've appropriated X number of dollars for defense, and 10% of that is being frittered away unproductively. If we can fix that, which, let's agree, nobody is going to come out in favor of waste, fraud, and abuse. You're not going to, I'm not going to, no sane person is. So if we eliminate that somehow, which, obviously it's not possible to eliminate it entirely, there'll always be some things that slip through the cracks. But let's say we make a concentrated effort and we reduce it significantly. I would still have that money in the defense budget for the purpose of doing more important things, building an additional submarine, doing a better job maintaining our fleet, which has shrunk significantly. I wouldn't be comfortable with the idea of reducing the defense budget right now. I would like to see that defense budget as effectively and efficiently spent as possible.
So you want the defense budget more then? You think we should be spending more on that, sir?
I didn't say that. I said I didn't want it cut.
No, I got you. No, 100% agree with you. No, I don't want to see anything cut with defense budget.
Frankly,
if I agree with you. But I appreciate your thoughts,
Evan,
sir. I just want to go ahead and
hold it a second. Let me stop. If you were to give me a choice right now, okay, which would you favor if you had to, a defense budget reduction or a defense budget increase? I would definitely support an increase over a reduction in the world that we live in today.
No, I thank you for your comments, sir. And yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on
Okay.
on that. So yeah,
Have a
thank
good
you.
day.
You have a great rest of your show.
Okay. Let me see. Well, Evan focused on the defense budget. He didn't focus on the issue that I raised, which was that last year we spent more on debt service than on the defense budget. And then he got into the question of, well, is there waste, fraud, and abuse in defense? Of course there is. There's waste, fraud, and abuse throughout the entire government. We understand that. Nobody's in favor of it. That's one of the reasons when Elon Musk and Doge set off to, Department of Governmental Efficiency. Who could be against that? The problem is, of course, they overpromised and underdelivered. Elon Musk said, we're going to uncover $2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. That was never a realistic promise. No wonder Mr. Musk and Mr. Trump get along so well. They both have this tendency to indulge in outrageous hyperbole and make massive claims that then don't occur. Of course, sometimes in his businesses, Mr. Musk says, I'm going to land a man on the moon. By golly, one of these days he probably will. But when it comes to his operations in the political realm, he has been far more bark than bite. So Doge didn't deliver $2 trillion in savings. I think it delivered something like 10% of that. In other words, about $200 billion. And again, I mentioned earlier in the program, that's great. That moves us in the right direction, but it doesn't move us nearly far enough. So I make the point once again. We are headed for a fiscal disaster. It is clear. It is unmistakable. It is there. The lookout is, hey, there's the iceberg. And the American people, through their votes and the people they elect to office, are making it absolutely clear, do not change course. Do not reverse the engines. Just more of the same. And the major opposition party, at this point the Democrats, have the opportunity to take up this mantle. They have the opportunity to say, okay, elect us. We'll get serious about this. We will address America's biggest. But instead, the only thing they're doing is jamming down their foot on the accelerator, making it worse. And this is why I fear for the future of our republic. And I'll be honest with you. I'm 73 years old. I'm hoping that I die before it happens. I don't want to watch the nation that I have loved all my life and that I have served in uniform go down the drain. So I'm hoping that the band keeps playing until they count 10 over me and I can check out. As for everybody else, well, this is why I often say I'm glad to be old and childless. I would feel, I can't imagine the feeling I would have if I had kids who are going to definitely be stuck in the middle of this mess. That would freak me out. It is 10 o'clock at Santa Cruz Voice. I'll be back in 6 minutes.
For me is reliability, somebody that stands behind their word. When they tell you they're going to do something.
Who decides to
If you are sleeping in a position like this, you are wrecking your body and your breathing.
Change a car tire. This is a Babylon Bee satire. And again, if you want to look at this, I'm sure there's visuals here, which I will enjoy.
Toxic masculinity is a problem. Hi, my name is Jerm Hoff. I've been married for 12 years and I am a feminist. A lot of men have trouble saying that they're a feminist because they think it's emasculating or something, but not me. I believe that men and women are equal. Anything I can do, my wife can do too. The idea that just because I have testosterone, I'm better at things is reductive, and quite frankly, it's insulting. Honey, you get that tire changed yet? I'm meeting the guys for a brewski in about 20 minutes, so if we could move that along, that'd be fantastic. By tossing aside the shackles of the patriarchy, we both benefit. I get more time to play video games made for children, and she gets more time to do the things that she loves to do, like my laundry. Spider! Honey, there's a spider! It's big and hairy. I'm a good husband. Some say that chivalry is dead, but I say you can be chivalrous and a feminist at the same time. See? A thank you would be nice. Society has told me my whole life, be a man or man up. But feminism has rewired my brain to say woman up or girl power or plunge that toilet, woman. I just hope that I can play a small part in dismantling these institutions for the next generation. I make sure that my daughters know that they can do anything. Hey, how's that firewood coming, sweetie? It's gonna be a cold winter. So learn from us. My wife and I have to fall in gender roles in your marriage. Isn't that right, honey? Give me all your money! Here's a gun! Honey, do something. Be the change you want to see in the world by standing up to the systemic power imbalances between men and women by standing up to this man while I run away. Thanks, feminism. You saved my life.
Oh, my God.
Oh, dare you.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my heavens. Unbelievable. Okay. Okay. Oh, dearie, dearie, damn dear. Okay, we've covered him.
So now pouring of support for the late Charlie Kirk up on Capitol Hill and Statuary Hall. Let's bring in Fox News Chief Political
right. Once more, it is News Talk time. Hour number 2 begins past 10 o'clock on a lovely Tuesday morning around the Monterey Bay. I am Charles Freedman. It's my radio program, and you are cordially invited not merely to listen, but also to take action. We had Evan give us a buzz. You can do so in this hour. 826-550-50, the number, 265-5050. Okay, I think we can turn the page now and begin to discuss other things, specifically what's going on in the world. Yesterday, I noticed on the front page of the largest circulation newspaper in the United States, that's the Wall Street Journal, there was a picture, and no, pardon me, not a picture, but there was simply a headline. Basically, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was Putin and Netanyahu both make war while Trump dithers, or something to that effect. And I must admit, this idea of lumping Mr. Putin and Mr. Netanyahu together as warmongers, the word wasn't there, but it was clearly implied, I found distasteful to the point of disgust. The allegation that Mr. Trump was doing nothing, well, again, in situation, doing nothing is actually justifiable. After all, Israel has not asked us to help them deal with Hamas. The one time that Israel did need us to do something that they could not do, President Trump obliged. The one thing that Israel needed that President Trump couldn't do was to provide the weapon systems and ordnance to penetrate the deep underground bunkers where the Ayatollah was building his bomb. And we all remember that Mr. Trump gave the order and that strike was carried out with tremendous precision. Just a beautiful job. And, of course, not a single casualty. Today, we read that the IDF is embarking on an invasion of Gaza City. They're investing the last stronghold of Hamas in Gaza. And indeed, over the weekend, I saw a big newspaper piece. Israel is winning the war and losing the world. And I've talked about this on the program many times. Israel is the one that gets victimized by Hamas, a terrible terrorist attack, and yet somehow now, when they respond to this, Israel are the villains. And incidentally, when I mentioned that terrorist attack, the one thing I didn't mention, I forgot to mention, was the taking of hostages. And indeed, that has become the reason the war continues. This article essentially berating Israel for continuing its war against Hamas, but no indication there that Hamas might consider releasing the hostages. Gee, that might work. Frankly, I cannot conceive. I mean, Israel dealt with Hezbollah in a matter of weeks. And I'm convinced that if Hamas had not taken and continued to hold hostages, that Israel would have long since arrived at some way of dealing with, probably isolating Hamas. After all, they don't want them running Gaza again, do they? They'd simply be inviting more rockets at the very least, another October 7th at the worst. Hamas makes itself clear. They are in the business of killing Jews. Nothing else matters. The world is crying for peace. And now focusing attention on the Israelis. Oh, these horrible people. One of the things that was mentioned in this article was that David is now Goliath. I've talked about this on programs going back years. And it's a thing. Empowerment through victimhood. We all know about that. Empowerment through victimhood. If you can claim, oh, somebody's beating me up, and everybody's supposed to sympathize with you. Well, sometimes maybe you deserve to be beat up. Haven't you ever watched a movie where some vile character finally gets the living daylights kicked out of him and you, yeah, right, good. When you were growing up reading Superman comic books, Superman would, be doing battle with this incredibly powerful evil entity, and he'd finally get the upper hand, and you were happy because that evil entity was now being dealt with. Truth, justice, and the American way. Have we lost that now? Is victimhood an automatic passport to our approval? Even if you're despicable. Well, Israel in its early days was this tiny little country beset by tremendous armies launched by other countries against it. And from the very beginning, from 1948 on, every time they were challenged, the Israeli army would manage to throw out these invaders and withstand the attack and safeguard Israeli soil and Israeli sovereignty. It used to be you could set your watch by this. 1948, 1956, 1967, 1973. And generally Egypt was the country that was in the front line. But finally, what happened with Egypt? Egypt made peace with Israel. And Israel made peace with Egypt. They arrived at a two-state solution. Each recognized the other, acknowledged its sovereignty and legitimacy. They exchanged ambassadors. And Israel, incidentally, at that point, returned to Egyptian sovereignty the Sinai Peninsula, which they had taken in the 1967 war and continued to hold. Land for peace. It worked out beautifully. Didn't work out in the Golan Heights. Assad of Syria would not make peace, so Israel finally annexed the Golan Heights. Said, you're not getting it back. You're not going to have this to shell our people continually with. We'll take it. And they did. Now I wonder what they're going to do with Gaza. President Netanyahu, or Prime Minister Netanyahu, has made it clear that he is not interested in having Israel occupy Gaza. That's not what he wants to do. And I can understand that. But they're going to have to take a rather active role in deciding what goes on next there. But what's going on right now, of course, is a final rolling up of Hamas. Once again, Hamas could end this war today. All I have to do is release the hostages. Incidentally, if they did that, Prime Minister Netanyahu would be greatly upset. In a way, this is rather Machiavellian, but I think I know Mr. Netanyahu's thought processes. Mr. Netanyahu has bigger fish to fry than 50 hostages, half of whom are already dead. Oh, don't get the idea that he doesn't care about them. He does. But he's also the leader of a country under perennial threat from terror attacks. Hostages are part of what he's been dealing with for years now. His main concern is keeping his country safe and secure. What Mr. Netanyahu wants to do right now is to hunt down and destroy Hamas. And Hamas is enabling that. It's kind of a symbiotic thing almost. Hamas continues to retain hostages, about 50 of them at this point. And Netanyahu continues to say, we are going to get those hostages back, and this is the only way to do it. And Hamas is making it clear that he's right. They won't return the hostages. The only way to get them is to come and get them and forcibly take them away from Hamas terrorists who are dumb as stumps. If Hamas wants to promote their own interests at this point, what would they do? Give Israel back the terrorists, the hostages. What would happen next? Netanyahu would immediately have to stop his military campaign against Hamas. The war would be over. Even though Netanyahu would not want it to be over, it would be. It would be. The hostages, the fact that Hamas continues to hold them, are the only justification that Netanyahu and the Israeli government have for continued military action against Hamas. This is what they cite as their justification. We will continue to persecute Hamas until the hostages are released, until we get our hostages back. So give the hostages back. But no, Hamas are too stupid to do that. I mean, this is one of the things that bores me about Hamas. It's not just that they're vicious and bloodthirsty, it's also that they're dumb as stumps. So they're claiming empowerment through victimhood. They deserve to be squashed like a bug. If not for being evil, then for being stupid. If you're that stupid, you get wiped out of the game. That's all there is to it. You're too dumb. Sorry. So I will be watching future developments. I understand one thing, that Hamas could end this conflict tomorrow or today by simply returning the hostages. All of them, dead and alive. Do I expect them to do that? Hell no, they're too dumb. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. They've got to be intellectually challenged. They're just too stupid to breathe. If they want the attacks to end, that's the way to do it. Give back the hostages. But again, we have to understand, maybe it's not stupidity. Maybe it's just a measure of the depth of their hatred. They are so consumed with hate that, you know, keeping hostages is, I guess, it's more important to them than their own survival. These are people, after all, who strap bombs to children, their own children, and send them into place. You want the attacks to end Hamas. To end Hamas. Hello, who have I got here?
Hey, Charlie, it's Buck in SoTel.
Hi, Buck. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hey, I'm listening to your presentation, and it seems to me that Hamas is not stupid. They're effective, and they're effective in basically having a forever war that will still be going, long after America's dust. They, like you've said many times, they're going to continue to fight. They're going to continue to, hate and have destruction. And they're kind of equivalent to wood rats, in my opinion. Unless you fill the hole, there's always going to be one coming back. Generation after generation, they just smell themselves go, keep eating in the same hole, and creating destruction. So I don't, you're calling them stupid. it doesn't seem right to me. They're not stupid. They're effective in their sickness and hatred.
Okay. As you were saying, you said wood rats. You know, at the same time you said that, Buck, I had something else in my mind. Have you ever heard? I've heard this mantra or this meme a few times. Sometime in the far distant future, when humanity is no longer, the human race has gone extinct and everything, what will still be left? Cockroaches.
Yep.
And I thought of you said wood rats. I thought of cockroaches, and neither of those are a very complimentary way to designate at what are, after all, human beings. You're calling them wood rats. I'm calling them cockroaches. This is not a positive way to characterize Homo sapiens. So you're saying, well, after all, they're being effective. They're continuing to cling to their hatred and their terrorism, and it's well, the one thing that they need, though, is outside support, because they, simply being a terrorist and doing violence for a living doesn't feed you. So they're depending on outside help. And, of course, the Iranians have traditionally been providing that. And, of course, the United Nations has been tremendously effective in funding Hamas. But if you cut off their funding, sooner or later, probably sooner, they're going to collapse because they'll all get very, very hungry.
Yeah, but their hatred won't collapse.
No, they won't. But they'll
have a chance that next time they get money, or next time they get an opportunity, or their kids' have a chance to, continue the war and the hate down the road. This was kind of my frustration with us taking out the Iranians' weapon, is that it's basically a target on our back, that the first chance they ever get at having a nuclear weapon, you can make sure that it's going to be used on the West. And so, it's great that we've taken out the chance, but we've also had that target on our back, and it's never going to stop being there.
Buck, we knew that already. I mean, this was one of the reasons, this was the reason I voted for Mr. Trump in the last election, was because he promised me that the Ayatollah would not have a bomb, because President Trump understood that this was a religious fanatic who cared nothing for his own survival. He was already on first-name terms with Allah, and that the only reason that he would be given a bomb by Allah was so that he would use the bomb in the name of Allah. So this idea that, well, it's too bad we kept him from getting a bomb, because now if he ever gets one, he'll want to use it. Well, that was something that was always there to begin with. So I don't understand your point there. Do you think that Mr. Trump did the wrong thing?
Do I think he did the wrong things? In some ways, yes, I do. I think that was not our place to do that. That was Israel's place to do that. And,
but they couldn't. They were doing everything they could. I made this clear earlier in my presentation. This was the one thing that Israel did not have the physical capability of doing. They lacked the ordnance and the military hardware. So they prevailed upon President Trump, and he was there for them.
Yep.
And for himself, after all, the Iranians
he was effective, and it worked out for him. And any kind of slip, and it wouldn't have worked for him, but it did. And so he gets, he comes away looking good on that.
Well, yeah, and
I don't
the idea, any kind of
America in the long run.
Any kind of slip, but this is one of the reasons we have a big defense budget, is we don't pay those people to slip up. When it comes to something like this, President Trump, or any president for that matter, should be able to give orders and say, okay, I want this to happen, and it should be carried out, and essentially a flawless operation, just as you saw.
Well, you don't have people like the convictions of President Trump in the White House very often. And there's been plenty of soft presidents who weren't willing to take the decision to do something, just like your conversation yesterday or the day before about Barack Obama and his red line. He had the option to do it, and he didn't. And it takes guts and conviction, and we all know Trump has that.
Well, again, that's a different thing. I'm talking about the idea you emphasized that the military operation was flawless. Well, Mr. Trump did not carry out that operation. He ordered it. But he had confidence when he did that our military...
I don't see any difference in that. That's the same statement.
Well, no, the one is
the
one is the resolve of the president to give the order. The other is the professionalism and ability of the military to carry out the order once given. Those are two different things.
That's true, but he had it set up to where they were, the plan was in place to be effective, and they were. It wasn't like they were bringing helicopters in to take someone out in Panama or some of the other places we've had issues. This was a high-end strike that was very expensive and very effective with our best weapons. And so, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think he did a good job in the decision that he made, and it was a win for him. He doesn't always get those.
Well,
but going back to Hamas, I mean, I don't see any reason that Hamas would ever stop until there's nothing left. And when there's nothing left, they'll have thousands of years of being able to blame the Israelis for there being nothing left there. And, there would never be any peace in Gaza, ever.
I've got to admit
that
looks like a reasonable analysis. It's something that I've emphasized on the program from time to time, and obviously you've thought about this. The sheer inhumanity of Hamas, the fact that they are so consumed by hatred that nothing else matters to them. And so, I call them foolish because, they're holding hostages right now, which continues to subject them to attack. If the one thing they want to do, hopefully, for them anyway, they want to survive so they can kill more Jews. Well, right now what they're doing is getting them killed. So if they were to release the hostages, the attacks by the IDF would stop. There would be no way that Mr. Netanyahu and the Israeli government would continue this maximum effort against Hamas if the hostages were released. That's the bone of contention right now. So
the thing is, there's nothing left for them to be there for. So what's the point of giving up now? Because there's nothing left. It's rubble and chaos. There's no food. There's no place to grow food. There's no resources except what's given to them by humanitarian aid, so they can be, in the lowest 1% anywhere on Earth.
Hamas doesn't care.
I mean,
whatever.
Exactly. That's my point.
They view this, I guess, as their sacred mission, and all of this suffering they're being put through, and all of this, it's a holy matter to them. They have to endure all of this so they can kill more Jews. It's a mindset so bizarre that as civilized people, you and I almost can't even comprehend it. And frankly, I'm glad of that. I don't want to be able to think like they do. That would freak me out, man.
A huge population of this country does view things that way and has that sickness in their heart.
No.
Proof of Charlie Kirk being executed, proof of the terrorizing that's going on in the streets, the indoctrination, the amount of Muslims who are muddying the water in this country. We are just another step from their cancer that has already come here. And as far as I can see, we're going to be fighting that for years and years. And where else has that won? They're I don't know. I feel sick to my stomach, Charlie, thinking about this stuff, because the Hamas thing's not going to end. The only way it ends is when Netanyahu's either taken out of power or he's politically pushed to a point where he can't do anything more in Hamas or in Palestine, Gaza, and it's just going to be a wasteland that's always going to be threatening the Israelis. And
so Netanyahu's efforts to end that threat meet with your disapproval?
They don't meet with my disapproval, but the lens of the world is not backing him like the conversation you have every day.
I understand that. Yeah, that's for real. And this is one of the things I decry. This is why I talk about this on my program, is because I'm trying to make sure that anybody who listens to me understands clearly just exactly who wears the white hats and who wears the black hats, and that Hamas are the villains here. They've always been the villains here, and that squashing them like bugs is really a good thing. It's, kind of like what Superman would do with Lex Luthor. And for the same reason.
There's no winner in a street fight, Charlie.
Oh, yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. If at the end of that fight one guy is still standing and the other guy is dead on the ground, there's a winner.
Not really, because that guy lost by getting in a fight, and his reputation's been tarnished, or his nose has been broken, or whatever the case is. It's not a win. It's not a loss.
Well,
but it's definitely not a win.
I wonder about, you've got guys like Tucker Carlson nowadays who are going around saying that the wrong side won World War II. The big villain was Winston Churchill. And, most sane people are going to listen to something like that and say, you're full of it. But
so you think Netanyahu has a chance for a win?
As long as Hamas continues to hold the hostages and enable Netanyahu, yes, I think he has a chance for a win. But if they give up the hostages, then...
For a win or to win?
For a win, not to win. To win is final. And as you made the point, radicalized Palestinians, or Philistines, as I sometimes call them, radicalized Philistines are going to continue to crop up. Hamas always has new recruits. And this is the point I think that you were making when you began your call. You said, look, these guys are never going to go away. There's always going to be this lunatic fringe of hate-crazed nuts, homicidal maniacs who want nothing to do other than kill Jews. And for that reason, the motto of Israel is never again. They've already been through this once. Hamas would recreate the Holocaust. That's what they want to do. And the Israelis are saying, no, you won't. We won't allow it.
So Netanyahu can continue to slowly annihilate every innocent Palestinian, every Hamas, every radical, until everyone's gone and dead. And as long as there's still a hostage, which he'll never get all the hostages back, no matter, even if they tried to.
Oh, they might. That you can't say that. The hostages are somewhere, and one of these days, some group of IDF soldiers is going to stumble across the right tunnel, and they're going to find them. Stranger things have happened. But if you just wait for the Hamas to turn them back over, then you'll never get them. Obviously, Hamas is absolutely determined that these last hostages will not be returned.
Sure, and
I keep saying
every day that more innocent people get killed.
Well, now bear in mind, every innocent person who is killed is a victim of Hamas. Every single one. Because Israel is not interested in killing innocent Palestinians. If they were, then by this time you'd have hundreds of thousands dead. You've had the Israeli military with 2 years.
You do have hundreds of thousands dead.
Oh, no. No, you don't. No, you don't. The death toll in Gaza is nowhere near that. Even the Palestinian and Hamas propagandists are only claiming 60,000. And that 60,000, incidentally, includes Hamas fighters who've been killed who are not innocent Palestinians. They're enemy combatants.
Well, that's definitely different than my brain was telling me, but that wasn't on fact. That was just on pure destruction.
No,
but,
no.
I don't see Netanyahu at this point getting a win. And
if he gets the hostages back,
he's not going to get a surrender either.
If the IDF can get the hostages back, he gets a win. If the IDF,
so how many hostages does he have to get back before he stops?
There are, I think, 50 hostages remaining. I think 20 of those
and if he gets 20?
Well, the Israeli point has been, we want our hostages back. So the answer is all of them. Every single one. All. And there are only 50. Why does, again, if Hamas wants peace, why don't they simply return the hostages? They could have peace tomorrow.
They don't want peace, Charlie. They don't. You know that. I know that. They don't want peace.
Okay,
if they wanted
I
peace,
understand.
they wouldn't have attacked them in the first place.
So, then your point is that Hamas has been very smart in the way that they framed this in such a way as to turn world opinion against Israel. I agree with you. That's unfortunately been a real fact, and this is what I fight on a fairly constant basis on this program. People who listen to my program understand that Hamas are the bad guys, that the civilian casualties we decry are their fault. Everybody who's died in this, from the murder victims on October 7th right on through to today, every single one of them is a victim of Hamas. Every one.
It's true. And it can be easily said that, Netanyahu has a lot of that blood on his hands, even though he has a right to do it.
Well, I guess Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill wound up with a lot of blood on their hands.
Certainly did.
Well, good. I'm glad. If that makes me sound bloodthirsty, then so be it. I want to see the Third Reich crushed. I want to see Hamas crushed.
In today's day and time, maybe you're pulled off the broadcast for that, or you're, it's an opinion, and I agree with the opinion, and that's the same thing that we're kind of going through now with the Charlie Kirk thing.
Well,
if you agreed with not liking him and thinking it could go down, you're on a target.
Well, I guess if somebody were to burst through the door right now and shoot me, you know what? I'd be dead. But I guess in a way I'm like Charlie Kirk in that, frankly, I'm going to continue to do what I do. He continued to do what he did. The major difference is he was very effective and had an audience of millions, and I'm not.
Well, I think you're quite effective.
You're very kind, but unfortunately, I know the truth.
Well, I think that as much as I like Santa Cruz Voice and I listen, they've got quite their problems, and for you to find an audience in a sea of places to find, you guys are pretty inaccessible. So I think it's good that you continue to put up the good fight and have the conversation, and I still listen. So I appreciate you taking my call, and I honestly would love to not hear about Israel and Hamas anymore. I would like to have more conversations about keeping our country from having a civil war and what we do to strengthen the voices of the youth and not waste our time on forever wars like the atrocity that's happening in the Middle East.
Well, I would remind you of just one thing. As a regular listener to the program, you have undoubtedly heard me say many times that when a person calls, as you have, they are extended the privilege of being able to raise whatever question they want to raise on their call. Now, today, we've talked about the points that you made. Next time you call, and I'm certainly hoping there'll be a next time, you might want to say, well, I'd like to discuss what you just said, the situation here and the divisions that beset us, and the reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination, all of which have been discussed on this program. I'm sure you're aware of that. Certainly they've been discussed. I mean, it's a big topic. And
I understand that. I'm if it comes to Russia and Israel and Gaza, it's like talking about the 2020 election being stolen. It's just painful. But anyways, I know it'll get talked about because that's what's out there, and we'll continue to see the destruction of that section of the world. And I just hope that we're able to spend many more generations having the goods we have in America before that sickness infects us.
Well, long before that happens, I don't know if you were listening to my first hour or not, but we have already made a fiscal condition in this country that will destroy the United States of America a long time before any foreign invader has a chance to lay a finger on us.
I very much doubt that. We have really good printing machines.
Well, okay.
So
this is
now.
Thank you for making that. Thank you for making that suggestion. Now, this is something that obviously is possible. You simply flood the country with dollars, but we already saw that. Mr. Biden did that, and within a matter of weeks, we had inflation going, and people got upset about that. They said, we don't want that. So that would tend to mitigate against the idea of simply printing money to solve the problem, because that would be the result if you did that.
Sure. Because that $36 trillion is going away real quick, right? So we just keep borrowing against ourselves, and once we can't borrow anymore, we fight, and once we can't fight, we what? I don't know.
No, I don't foresee.
But thanks for the call, Charlie. I got to let you go. I'll be listening.
Buck,
and,
thank you.
Look forward to calling you more often and changing the topic.
Always good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Interesting call. A lot of different topics raised. I'm going to think about that for a couple. I've got to run my ads. I'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
Attention content producers. You can have access to a complete digital media production facility at Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Easily rent video and audio equipment, a studio with green screen, editing suite, and audio booth, all at can't say no rates. Schedule a tour to see for yourself at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna from Treehouse Dispensary in Soquel. In addition to the finest cannabis products, Treehouse dispenses information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Though we aren't medical professionals, we do know how cannabis science can help you. You must be 21, but no appointment is necessary, and the information is free. And for those who already know what they want, Treehouse has an online ordering option at ourtreehouse.io and drive-through pickup.
Forever wars. That was a phrase that Buck used a couple of times. He's certainly not the only person who's ever said that. And the idea of a forever war. War is a terrible enough thing, but the idea that you fight one forever. Whew. On the other hand, there's war and there's war. Let me give you an example. The Korean War has been going on for the entire length of my lifetime. It began in 1950, and it is still going on. It is literally a forever war. But since mid-1953, there has been an armistice, a ceasefire, that was negotiated with the North Koreans and which has held up ever since. Why has it held up? Because the United States of America has had the perseverance. We have maintained a military force in South Korea during my entire lifetime. Now, don't those people get old? No, they're rotated in and out. My uncle, for example, was in the Air Force 3 years back in the 1950s. He was in South Korea for a couple of years. And then, he replaced some other airman, and then when it came his time to leave, another airman replaced him. Today, our commitment in Korea numbers, I think, something like 35 or 40,000. And they are literally involved in a forever war. But nobody's shooting at them. People who were sent to Korea, when my uncle, back in the 50s, nobody was worried about whether he would come back or not. Now, a few years earlier, that would have been a very serious matter. So, there are wars and wars. Now, once again, let's address this topic of forever wars. The Bible said there will be wars and rumors of wars. So, if you want to look to biblical wisdom, there are always going to be wars. And if you look at human history, that makes sense. People are always fighting each other over something. This is one of the problems with the human race. So when these situations develop, you have two choices. Now, you can have peace anytime. I've made that point on this program often. All you have to do is capitulate. You say to your opponent, well, what do you want? And they say, I want this, 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 and this. Okay, you can have it. In the case of the two wars going today, the problem we have is that the aggressors, Hamas on the one hand and Russia on the other, have set the price too high. They have set the price at simply 100%. Hamas, for example, they have this slogan, from the river to the sea. They have a charter that says, we will kill the Jews. We will expel them. The Jewish people have a homeland in Israel. Their soil since biblical times, long before the term Palestine was ever dreamed up. But the Palestinians, Hamas, they say, no, we don't care. Get out, or we'll kill you. So they make it an existential matter. It's not a matter of the Israelis being able to reach an accommodation. They reached an accommodation with Israel. Long ago, they reached an accommodation with Jordan, other neighboring nations. But Hamas, no accommodation. Now, in Ukraine, Russia has made it clear that there can be no accommodation. What do they want? They want Ukraine to be a vassal state of Russia. They might do what they've done with Belarus, allow it to maintain a fictitious sovereignty, but it's a fictitious sovereignty. Belarus is part of Russia today. Mr. Lukashenko and his government are there at the pleasure of Vladimir Putin. Whatever he wants to do, he does. If he wants to send the Russian army into Belarus to attack other countries from that soil, he'll do it. He already did it. His original invasion of Ukraine was launched from Belarus. Was Belarus at war with Ukraine? Officially, no, but bear in mind, Belarus is not an independent or sovereign state. In reality, it is part of Russia. And that's what Russia wants Ukraine to be. So again, they've raised it to an existential level. There's a war. You say to your opponent, okay, what do you want? What will it take to end the war? How do I surrender? You will please be dead. Whoa. At that point, you say, well, I'm sorry. Your terms are unacceptable. And so you fight. You fight for your national existence. That is what is at stake in Israel. That's what's at stake at Ukraine. National existence of peoples. This is why these wars are so intractable. Because when you have one people saying to another people, you have no right to exist, and we are going to wipe you from the face of the earth. We are going to end your language, your culture, everything about you. Your children will be raised as Russians. The Russians have already kidnapped how many tens of thousands of Ukrainian children? This is one of the most hideous things they've done. They kidnap children and then they give them to Russian parents, hundreds of miles behind the front lines. Okay, here's your new kid. And many of them are, babes in arms, infants. I don't remember what happened to me at that age. Most people don't. If suddenly you're dumped into, this whole Russian situation, you grow up that way, you figure, well, this is the way it is. This is who I am. Your parents may have been Ukraine, but you're not. We decry human trafficking. This is really human theft. This is what the Russians are doing. Hamas, of course, doesn't do anything like that. When they get a hold of a Jewish baby, they smash it, bash its head against a wall, set it on fire. They're not nearly as humane as the Russians are. So as I listen to Buck, and once again, he's talking about forever wars, yes, there are forever wars. Fought until at some time, obviously, like with South Korea, we've had now 3 generations of Kims. Kim Jong-un was what was it? I can't remember anymore, but there's been 3, we're now into Kim the Third. I call him, Emperor of North Korea, and they remain as obdurate as ever. We will conquer South Korea. We will unite the peninsula. And we've been hearing that for 70 years. And as long as we maintain our military presence in South Korea, it will probably remain, and as it is, so it shall be. Is it peace? Hell no. Officially, the war's still on. Do you know that? It's true. There's an armistice, but officially, the Korean War has never ended. So what's it up to us to do? When I was a young man, one of the things they used to try to teach us was perseverance. Stick-to-itiveness was what they called it. The idea that if you wanted to succeed, if you wanted to accomplish things, you had to be determined. You had to be willing to commit and stay committed. The modern world is teaching that lesson on a daily basis. It's simply a fact of life. Buck was saying that, if the Ayatollah ever gets a bomb, now he'll want to use it against the United States. Do you suppose that was never his idea? It was always his idea. There's nothing strange or about that. And one nice thing about the Ayatollah, he always announced it clearly. Sometimes your enemy sneaks up on you. But the Ayatollah was very forthright, nice religious fanatic. Allah tells him to do something, and he says, Allah has told me that I have to get an atomic weapon. What happens next? Well, we got to get rid of all these Jews. And we have people, intelligent, well-meaning people, complaining about forever wars. Who was the American patriot? Was it Thomas Jefferson who said, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom? I didn't make that up. Who did? I'm gonna dig that one up right now, because that goes back a ways. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. I beg your pardon, not the price of freedom, the price of liberty. Okay, who said that? Doesn't say here. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, the phrase which is often mistakenly attributed to Thomas Jefferson. No, well, see, I was wrong. Originated with John Curran. Emphasizes that power tends to concentrate, and without ongoing oversight, civil liberties can be eroded. So he was talking in terms of domestic politics. But I think that the same statement can easily be transferred to matters of international politics. Eternal vigilance is the price of freedom because, or the price of liberty. He said, well, eternal vigilance is the price of our national integrity, of our republic. We talk about people who are thieves. Give me your valuables. Okay? People want to steal things of value. Is our republic of value? I think so. Tremendous value. And do the Jews of Israel think their republic is of value? Do the Ukrainians think their republic is of value? When somebody seeks to steal your entire national identity, well, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. The Bible said there will be wars and rumors of wars. Forever wars? Yeah, I'm afraid so. The Bible promised it, and it doesn't lie. It is now 11 o'clock. I'll be back in 6 minutes. Okay, we have a guy who's an immigrant and a murderer, and he's complaining because Trump just deported him. Let's find out what's on his mind. Juan is an immigrant, a father.
My name is Juan Domingo Sanchez Miguel de Carmen La Cruz, Jr. Like so many others, I came to this country with nothing but the clothes on my back and a dream. A dream that I could come here and commit many, many crimes. And now people and committing much crime have been shattered. I am as sad. I thought America was a place where you could freely traffic. Well, I also do some cocaine, maybe take over an apartment complex or something. I also want to do non-crime things, like see a Chuck E. Cheese, go to a Doyers game, but mostly all the crime stuff. I know I'm being deported thanks to President Trump. I've only killed 5 people. There was so much more I wanted to do. So many dreams yet to be dreamed, so many people yet to be killed. But Joe Biden flew me into this country, promising me a better life of many enjoyable acts of lawlessness. But now, Trump is flying the country, and I can still commit crimes there, but it's not as much opportunity and stuff. It is true Since being in this country, I've killed 7 people. But I was promised that I was in a sanctuary city, safe from laws and from being arrested, and from being forced to stop all my murder and murder-associated activities. It was a promise to me that was broken. I feel, como se dice, betrayed. Now I feel betrayed. I may not be a citizen, or have the right documentation, or be the kind of guy who doesn't murder people, but I am a person too. A person who just wants a chance to live the American dream and kill people. I am scared of returning to a country their law stops me from. Please, Mr. President, have mercy and do not punish me because I've killed 11 people.
11 people?
I just want to thank President Biden for bringing me into this country. I did what I could for you, Mr. Biden, and I voted for you many, many times.
There's a lot of news bias out there, but you can weed out news. Their website and app that gathers news from around the world.
Administration is so inhumane. They even turned my kind-hearted Tia into a Studio Ghibli meme. It's so heartless. I really like the art style though.
Blessings.
Oh my God. Poor guy. Getting deported. And he keeps losing track of the number of murders he's committed. I think that's the running gag there. Okay, once again, Babylon B. Fun stuff. At least I got a laugh out of it. Okay, now I've got to see what else we have for the next time. Talk on SantaCruzVoice.com. I'm Charles Freedman. Hour number 3 begins at a little after 11 o'clock on this lovely Tuesday morning. The telephone number remains 831-265-5050. Join us. We've had interesting calls in both hours of today's program, and I thank Evan and Buck for those calls. That leaves, well, several of you out there who are listening who haven't buzzed in. You can do that during this hour. 831-265-5058. I told Buck, and I'm telling you, when you make that call, if you want to change the direction of the program, you're satisfied, pleased with what I'm talking about, hey, talk about something else. We can do that. We can do that. Okay, I want to open this hour by calling upon the U.S. Congress to force President Trump's hand on sanctions on Russia. Notice I said not military action, nothing of that nature. Sanctions. For some time now, we've been being told that there is a sanctions bill in the Senate already drafted. It has something like 80 co-sponsors. Now, the Senate is divided 53-47 between Republicans and Democrats. So if there are 80 co-sponsors, obviously, this thing has backing from both Republicans and Democrats in overwhelming numbers. It hasn't been brought to the floor because President Trump hasn't asked for it to be brought to the floor. Well, we've had... Oh, hey, wow, we've already got a phone call. Woohoo, let's grab that, quick like a bunny. Mark's on the line. Hello, sir. Thank you for the call. Welcome.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I'm seeing a disturbing trend, and it's acts of violence done by young people on the left of the political spectrum. And we just saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk by a 22-year-old man. But in New York today, they had the first hearing for Luigi Mangione, who's, I think, a 27-year-old, and he murdered the CEO of United Healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing disturbing, the judge in the hearing today did not charge him. They did not charge him with murder during terrorism because they said it was only one victim, so I don't know. But they did not charge him with first-degree murder. Charged him with second-degree murder. And I thought first-degree was premeditated. And, second degree is you got in a bar fight with someone and stabbed them. And this guy, he stalked the guy, he ambushed him out in the street, and then he had messages written on the cartridges of his handgun. So to me, that was a well-planned out murder. Should be first degree. But the disturbing thing was there was a large mob of young people there in support of Luigi Mangione. And they basically said that the CEO of United Healthcare deserved to be gunned down because of the economic issues they had with their healthcare provider, I guess. But they said this murder was justified. And we're kind of hearing the same thing on the social media about Charlie Kirk, that his murder was justified because of the positions that he took. And I'm just wondering, these young 20-year-olds coming out of public schools, if there's something that's being taught there that we kind of need to know about. So not only do these individuals do it, they have quite a large group of supporters out here in the country.
So imagine, if you will, first of all, the idea that Mangione was not charged with first-degree murder, obviously it was premeditated. You're certainly correct about that. Bear in mind, this was New York City. This is Alvin Bragg, district attorney. He's the one who decides what charges are brought. And maybe, he would like to decorate Mr. Mangione. I don't know. In my America, somebody who does something like this would be given a speedy and fair trial, and then within 2 or 3 weeks, they would be hanged. And that would be the end of that. Now, do I say that this would dissuade every single miscreant in society? Obviously not. I'm no utopian. I understand that even capital punishment does not dissuade everybody. Do I think it would dissuade some people? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I believe that the normal human instinct for self-preservation is very strong. After all, it succeeded in keeping us from blowing ourselves up with nuclear weapons for years during the Cold War. That's what mutual assured destruction was based on, the human instinct of self-preservation. So, this is what I offer as the most immediate solution to this. First of all, I guarantee that if you execute Mr. Mangione and Mr. Robinson, that neither of them will ever be recidivists. That you won't have them killing again. So that will definitely be taken off the table. but you will also have the message sent if you go out and commit a political assassination, which is what both of these acts were, you will be tried and executed. Hey, how about that?
Well, I understand that, and there's always going to be, people on the marginal end of sanity, like, that are going to go out and do these horrific events. My concern is the large group of, quote, normal young people that support it. And they interviewed people outside the courthouse, and they interviewed this young woman, 22, and she says, we're here because we both support Luigi for what he did, taking out a bite out of corruption of the healthcare industry. She stated that she could see a comparison with the killing of Charlie Kirk. And then, again, another quote from her, I understand there's some people who think it's wrong what he did, but me and my friends are in solidarity for what he did. And then violence is wrong, but when it comes to a point where you've tried every option, violence should not be looked down upon. So where are they learning this philosophy?
I don't know.
Again, I think they're out there.
I would say
they're out there marching with signs and flags and gear.
Mark, let me answer your question.
Yeah.
You said, where are they getting this? I initially said, I don't know. But while I said those three words, my mind was racing. And the first thing that I came up with was, I believe they're coming up with things like this online, in interactions with many other people whose worst instincts are given free rein on the internet. This is something that we've seen before. So for it to resurface in this fashion it's appalling, but it's not amazing or inexplicable. I think that, and obviously this is not something that you're going to be able to contain. The only way to contain something like this is with the cultural message that we used to all get very clearly, that murder is wrong, and that there is no justification for killing a human being unless you're in war. That's or defending yourself. And incidentally, war is defending yourself, so same kind of thing. But those moral boundaries are no longer taught, certainly not in school, and I would suggest to you that in many homes they're not taught. So once again, you're faced with a country that is not only headed toward a fiscal cliff that I described earlier in the program, but it's also headed toward a moral and cultural cliff. And I'm glad to be old and childless.
Well, I agree with you. I think they're getting a lot of this opinion and indoctrination online. I'm just worried that, these are probably right out of public school, recent public school graduates, and what are they learning there? But, you see these young people out in these colorful get-ups and signs supporting Luigi Mangione. Honestly, I think it'd be more representative if they were wearing brown shirts. That, you see it our way, we'll kill you.
Well, welcome to the 21st century. Well,
yeah, and
I keep asking where I keep asking where I can take this century for a refund or exchange, but nobody comes up with any ideas.
Yeah. Well, if they see violence as the method to achieve their goals, I mean, we on the other political spectrum, we're not doing that. When George Floyd met his end, cities were burned and people were murdered. When Charlie Kirk met his end, people gathered in prayer. And I think that was the second one was the appropriate response. But, we also will respond if, our families are threatened. So I hope these people tone it down a little.
Thank you for pointing that out. This is something that has occurred to me several times over the past few days, And each time it was, when I was nowhere near this broadcast facility, and then I would get here and I'd forget all about it, which happens to me. But the point that, the reaction, when a figure of note on the left is, meets an untimely end, or is celebrated by the left, and doesn't necessarily have to be somebody they ever heard of before. George Floyd was unknown to anybody until he was killed by that police officer. But this, instead of using that as a reason to hold vigils, to raise the issue, talk about the issue, etc., etc. No, instead it was let's destroy cities, let's destroy businesses, let's set fires, let's turn over vehicles, let's attack other human beings. And I noticed nobody who has been observing and mourning the death of Charlie Kirk, I haven't heard of any acts of violence, vandalism, riot, anything of that sort. So this is one of those things where you ask, well, where is there an absolute difference between behavior on the right and on the left? And you have just put your finger on a very big one.
Yeah, very true. And we have a political commentator on the right who got murdered. We have a political candidate on the right during the campaign who got shot in the head. And, I don't see the reciprocal violence occurring. But anyhow, but a little frightening. If you look on the media today, the hearing in New York, and it's disturbing to see the people out on the streets protesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Glad to have you. Okay, we will, once again, I'm going to make the presentation. Call the program. You can discuss what you want to discuss. Mark just proved that. I had something else all teed up here, but as soon as I saw his call, I took it right away, and we discussed what he wanted to talk about. We'll discuss what you want to talk about, but all you have to do is make the call, 831-265-5050. Okay, I had been getting about the topic of this sanctions bill that is languishing in the U.S. Senate for want of an endorsement or a call from President Trump. Now, the latest thing that just happened, Ukraine continues to be suffering more and more severe attacks by Russia. Russia continues to target civilians, civilian infrastructure. At least when I read of a Ukraine attack on Russia, they're attacking oil refineries, they're attacking electric plants, they're attacking things with strategic value, and things where you generally don't find women, children, and old people. Ukrainian attacks are going after targets of military and tactical value rather than civilians. And now Russia has launched this incursion into Polish airspace. More on that later on the hour if I get a chance. But Mr. Trump's reaction to that was, let me be blunt, woefully understated. Was just, okay, Poland attacked Russia, Russia's attacking Poland, here we go. Here we go. Here we go where? Here we go what? Here we go should be a cue to the members of the U.S. Senate and Congress. It is time to say to the President, sir, we will help you. You aren't calling for this sanctions bill, but we're going to pass it anyway. We'll go ahead. You be the good cop. We'll be the bad cop. We have the votes. Both Republicans and Democrats are anxious to vote for this bill. Crippling sanctions. Far in excess of anything that Mr. Trump has countenanced. He's too busy playing make nice with Vladimir Putin for reasons I could understand at the outset, but I cannot anymore. It doesn't make any damn sense now. Mr. Putin has clearly demonstrated to the world and to Mr. Trump just exactly who he is, how he thinks, and what he wants. The idea that you can make nice with him and get him to ease off is no longer tenable to any rational person. So, Congress, pass the bill. Peace in Ukraine isn't at hand. Americans know it. President Trump issued another round of pronouncements over the weekend. It may now fall to Congress to start applying pressure to Vladimir Putin to come to the table. President Trump said in one of his posts that he's ready to do major sanctions on Russia when all NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing, and when all NATO nations stop buying oil from Russia. As you know, NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%. Purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. Mr. Trump is right that Europe shouldn't still be importing oil and gas from Russia. And one of the laggards is Viktor Orban in Hungary. Kudos, too, for Mr. Trump's implicit suggestion the war in Ukraine is larger than one country's future and that NATO should do what it takes to prevail. But with Mr. Trump, you never know if he's issuing an ultimatum to persuade Europe or an excuse for him to keep doing little or nothing. His pattern is to throw up a demand, set a 2-week deadline, then blow past the deadline, and then repeat. Last week, the president mused on television that Russia's drone incursion into Poland might have been a mistake. That's ridiculous. Everyone knows it. NATO moves more defensive assets to the Eastern Front. For anyone who thinks the drones made a hapless wrong turn, the Institute for Study of War cited a Polish defense analyst noting many of the recovered Russian drones were equipped with fuel tanks that double their range to as much as 900 kilometers. Meanwhile, President Trump also said on Friday for the umpteenth time that he's losing patience. Oh boy. Now we're going back to childhood. I'm losing patience with you. I'm losing patience with you. And demean what a kid in the meantime is figuring out the next stunt he pulls. Sooner or later comes at the hairbrush. Mr. Trump is always buying time to act, and that means more time for Mr. Putin to kill more innocent Ukrainians and pocket more territory. By this point, one wonders if Mr. Trump is stringing Congress along so it doesn't pass anything that forces his hand. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Representative Brian Fitzpatrick put out a statement over the weekend suggesting their bipartisan secondary sanctions bill be attached to a stopgap measure for government funding this month. Their bill would punish countries that buy Russian oil and gas. Even as a standalone measure, the bill would pass with big bipartisan majorities in both houses. Ditto for Senator Graham's latest bill designating Russia as a state sponsor of terror if it doesn't return some 19,000 children it kidnapped from Ukrainian parents. This is one of the great crimes of this war or any war. The sanctions bill has been a holding pattern for months, ostensibly to allow President Trump time to conduct his global politics of personal diplomacy. House Speaker Johnson, GOP Senate Leader John Thune have been deferring to Mr. Trump out of partisan loyalty, but Congress is a co-equal branch of government with its own prerogatives and responsibility to protect the country's interests and national security. If they continue to deny these measures votes on the floor, they'll be complicit in whatever fate befalls Ukraine. By holding votes, they'd be helping the president, whatever you may think. Mr. Putin would see how the wind is blowing. Mr. Trump would have to choose between whether to put more pressure on Mr. Putin or do nothing and own some responsibility for more years of war, death, and destruction. A forever war. This is what Buck talked against. And again, that term forever war, that's a terrible term. What an awful idea. War, as General Sherman said, war is hell, and we're talking about one that goes on forever. Hell forever. That is unattractive, man. That is not something I want. So when Buck raises that specter, I listen. I pay attention. How do you end a war? Well, I mentioned one way, you capitulate, but I made the point that the prices that Hamas and Putin are setting are too high. So the only other way to deal with this is to win the war or reach some sort of accommodation that brings the war, the shooting part of it anyway, to a halt, i.e. Korea. A two-state solution. Matter of fact, a two-state solution would work in the Middle East. Hamas has continually rejected it. A two-state solution would work with Ukraine. Vladimir Putin rejects it. He says, no, there can't be a Ukrainian state. There is no such thing. That's part of Russia. And the only way that he will come to accept that reality is if he's forced to. Does America want to become involved in that war? No. Do I want America to become involved in that war? No, I don't want to send the Marines. I don't think you could find anybody, either Democrat or Republican, who is anxious for America to become involved in the Russia-Ukraine war. So what can we do? We can enable the Ukrainians. We can send them the military hardware they need to make the fight. We can dissuade the Russians, not with troops, guns, and bombs, but with economic means. Can this be effective? Yes. During the 1980s, Ronald Reagan waged economic warfare against the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union was brought down. It was defeated. This is not speculation. This is not dreaming. This is historical fact. Now, obviously, these facts, as positive as these are about Ronald Reagan, you can count on the fact that most school teachers don't mention them. So young people grow up, they don't know a damn thing about it. There actually was a World War III. Yeah, there was a Cold War. It lasted over 40 years. How did it end? We won, they lost, just like Reagan said. But how come I didn't read about it? No bombs, no missiles, no battles. No, the war was fought economically. Reagan broke their bank. The same thing can be done with Vladimir Putin. And that is what this sanctions bill in Congress is all about. It's the kind of thing that President Reagan would have done yesterday. But there's no way that Mr. Trump is anywhere near the president that Ronald Reagan was. So, maybe he needs a little bit of a nudge. And he should darn well get one. It's 1:30. Let's grab some ads. We'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm Charles Freedman. Thank you for being with us. The telephone number, if you want to add to this third hour, is 265-5050.
Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. I thought I'd share a few statistics with you. Do you know how long a frog can hold its breath? 4 minutes. Do you know how many nails the average roof requires? 7,000. What's the percentage of roofing companies that will be out of business after they've installed a roof? 80%. Here at Knox Roofing, we're still going strong, exceeding 15,000 homes now. Give us a call here at Knox Roofing at 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-414-1657. 800-414-1657. That's 800-414-1657.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold. We're offering a 100% risk-free gold guide. Gold continues to make new highs. And unlike stocks, gold has never been worth zero. You owe it to your nest egg and future to own some physical gold or set up a gold-backed IRA. Call right now for your free report.
800-414-1657. 800-414-1657. That's 800-414-1657.
It's high time to celebrate the opening of the new Hook Outlet Dispensary, 1129 Mission in Santa Cruz. Get in on the opening fun and really low prices on the Hook's unmatched selection of top-quality medical and recreational cannabis flower, vapes, drinks, gummies, and concentrates. The Hook Outlet is now the West Side's source for finest cannabis at the lowest prices. Get in on all the opening fun and low prices at the all-new Hook Outlet. HookOutlet.com for details and deals.
Okay, at 11:32, once again, we are back with more live. Let's talk about a couple of other things. Proposition 50, Measure 50. Are you familiar with this? It's going to be on the California ballot in November. Now, normally, in odd-numbered years, like 2025, normally in odd-numbered years, you don't have elections in California. We have our elections in even-numbered years. But this year is something special. Governor Gavin Newsom has decided that he wants to perform a super gerrymander of California's House districts, one which would probably cut Republicans down to 4 or 5 seats out of 50 in California. This is ridiculous. But it's going on the ballot. I mean, the legislature's already voted to pass it. They're going to waste $250 million on this special election. And, it costs money to do this, to run a statewide election. So at a time when the California budget is already billions in the hole, it's worth it to the Democrats to spend $200 million. After all, it's not their money, right? It's taxpayers' money. So, hey, we spend it. But this die was cast a couple of weeks ago. So now we're moving toward a vote on Proposition 50. And I was promised by various online entities, well, there's going to be plenty of financing for the campaign against this. But I find that as I look at YouTube and as I look at, the program right now, we've been streaming something called The Good Wife, which is kind of fun. It's Celeste likes storylines that revolve around attorneys and the law, and so do I. So this is something that we're enjoying together. And they have commercials woven into these, which we always mute, but nevertheless you can see them. The point I'm making is that over the past week or so, I have seen several messages promoting Proposition 50. Several messages promoting Proposition 50. I have not seen one single message opposing it. Not one. This is not good. Now, if Proposition 50 is put on the ballot and, well, the left will raise plenty of money and mount plenty of ads to promote it. They must be opposed. And is it hopeless? No, I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I'm looking right now at a piece written by Ken Kashigian. Yes, he's still around. Ken Kashigian was a political strategist who goes back to the days of Richard Nixon, I believe. I know that he was chief speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. And so he is a wise old man when it comes to observing California politics. He's been in California this entire time, and he knows whereof he speaks. Today he offers words of comfort. Gavin Newsom's gerrymandering measure is likely to fail, he says. Boosted by partisan loathing of President Trump and assisted by media toadies, California Governor Gavin Newsom's clownish social media posts and foul-mouthed news conferences appear to be paying off. Polls looking ahead to a hypothetical 2028 presidential race find Mr. Newsom leading the Democratic field, but the governor's path to the White House rests heavily on the success of a special election he's orchestrated for this fall. On November 4th, that is less than 2 months away, voters will determine whether to pass a constitutional amendment redrawing California's congressional districts to evade the state's independent redistricting commission. The ballot measure, Proposition 50, 50 states, get it, would gerrymander district lines to a ridiculous degree and could leave Republicans with as few as 4 of the 52 seats in the delegation. Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, a Republican from San Diego, estimates the cost of holding a special election at around $250 million. This means California taxpayers are paying $250 million to fuel Gavin Newsom's Oval Office bid and underwrite the state Democratic Party's obsession for autocratic rule. The proposition, however, is likely to fail. Mr. Newsom has put a stick into a hornet's nest. Proposition 50 threatens to smother the California GOP. A previously moribund California Republican Party is more motivated than ever to rally its grassroots, raise money, turn out voters, and defend its relevance on the political and social order. Further, ballot measures are notoriously difficult to pass. If voters have any skepticism or uncertainty about a policy, they tend to choose the status quo rather than voting for something new or questionable. I know this from experience, having overseen 2 losing California school choice campaigns that required yes votes. Prop 174's voucher campaign in 1993 lagged behind in September by 45 to 39, but then lost by 70-30. Proposition 50's support is spindly, 46% in favor, 36% opposed, a weak starting point, under 50%, when an opposition campaign has only modestly begun unleashing negative media. Stay tuned for heavy artillery. When is it beginning, Mr. Kashigian? They're already shooting. I've seen it. To rally support for the measure, Prop 50's advocates are relying on attacks against President Trump. As opposition to the campaign gears up, it will be as much about the governor as the president. Mr. Newsom will become the face of California's distrust of state government, failure to deliver on taxes, homelessness, schools, crime, housing, borders, budgets, and a high-speed train. Prop 50's advocates frame the measure as a temporary solution, but voters know better. Mr. Newsom's insistence that the redrawn lines are temporary is about as believable as the government's assurance of shorter wait times at the DMV. No one on 50 would be wise to argue that $250 million spent on this would be better spent on firefighters, police officers, school teachers, and road repairs. Prop 50 also has unnecessarily stirred up an unwanted adversaries, as California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger championed that independent commission that drew district lines. Schwarzenegger sees the amendment as a threat to his reforms and has returned to the political arena as a highly credible partisan to counter Mr. Newsom. Philanthropist Charles Munger Jr. has pledged more than $10 million to prevent the destruction of reforms his father supported. Former U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has reemerged in opposition to the measure, seeking to raise $100 million and rally the Republican base with his political skills and fundraising prowess. Although Common Cause and the League of Women Voters haven't taken a position on the measure, these good government organizations render no favors to the governor by using language that Prop 50 opponents are sure to use in campaign ads. Common Cause will not endorse partisan gerrymandering, the group said in a public statement. The League of Women Voters issued stronger language. Governor Newsom is dead wrong on the League of Women Voters. We are aligned with voters, period. Gerrymandering is a threat to democracy, regardless of who does it. Mr. Newsom's absurdly reactive behavior could turn voters against him. His response to Texas redistricting was overly dramatic and disproportionate. It wasn't a defense of democracy, but a shameless personal abuse of government to gild his credentials for his presidential ambitions. Voters may hold him accountable for this. At the end of the day, will Californians accept redrawn districts under Prop 50 that don't accurately represent the state's political makeup? The share of California voters registered as Democrats is 45%, but given Newsom's gerrymander, it would give them 92% of the congressional delegation. It's the perfect bargain. They peel only a small portion of the potatoes, but enjoy all the French fries. Come to think of it, that probably defines the way they believe government works. Well, so writes Ken Kashigian, and as I say, I have a lot of respect for this guy, and I want to believe him. After all, he's singing a very good song here. He's saying, well, this probably won't make it. But if it's not opposed, it sure as hell will. And I'm telling you that I am seeing television messages promoting Prop 50 and none that aren't. Now, I want all of you to get up right now. Don't go to your window, stick your head out, and yell, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore." Instead, go to your search engine and type in "No on 50." No on 50. It's just that simple. 6 keystrokes. You can do it. And you will find a numerous number of, let me see, here is Reform California, which is an organization that is working against 50. Cal Matters. Well, the place to go, California Republican Party also. But Reform California is the one that it seems to be highest profile. So go there, read what it has to, inform yourself so that if you get stuck talking with somebody about this in a line at the Safeway, you can have a few smart things to say to hopefully convince them to vote no. And if you have a few spare shekels lying around, there's a place where you can donate. The left is bringing a howitzer to this. They want those additional House seats. And Gavin Newsom, as Kashigian points out here, this is a trial run for Gavin Newsom's presidential campaign. Now, if this fails, will his presidential aspirations simply vanish? Of course not. But it'll put a nice big hole through his wing. And more than that, it will preserve the integrity of California's elections. Our districts, our House districts, are bad enough as they are. Right now, Republicans hold only 9 seats out of 52. Statewide, we get 40% of the vote for House of Representatives. So we should have, 20 seats? Something like that. Nowhere near. And that's was districts drawn by the commission, which, of course, has been played effectively by the Democrats. You know how it's supposed to have, I think it's 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 4 independents. Well, they managed to put independents on who are all Democratic operatives. So, every 10 years this commission is reconstituted, so in 5 years we'll have a chance again to do it. But if this measure passes, it may be the next thing that the Democrats will simply do away with the commission and go back to having the legislature simply draw the lines the way they want to, which is what we'll get if yes prevails on Measure 50 just 7 weeks from now. Time is short. And the Democrats already have their TV ads up. I've looked at a couple of them. They're effective. If we don't answer, then I'm sorry, Mr. Kashigian, but your prediction is going to be wrong. You're saying here that there's going to be all kinds of money ginned up. It should already be there. It isn't as if this simply came out of nowhere. Gavin Newsom's been braying about it for weeks. In this age of the internet, how long does it take to gin up a fundraising campaign and get something going? Okay, let me see. We've got 14 minutes left. I am going to once again make the call. To make a phone call, 831-265-5050 is the number. Glad to have you on the program. I have often talked about, what do I want to talk about here? Actually, I'm going to try to do both. First of all, I have continually offered cautionary notes about how Mr. Trump's tariff program will work. It certainly does not motivate towards reducing prices. And that's one of the things that Mr. Trump promised the American people. You'll see prices come down. He said so on the campaign trail. That's a promise that he made that he has not yet fulfilled. And one of the reasons is because of his tariff mania. You want an example? Well, consider a case study in the daily institutions of millions. You like to drink your morning coffee? Almost everybody in America drinks coffee. America runs on coffee. This summer, President Trump hit Brazil with a 50% tariff because he's upset with the country for various reasons. One problem for Americans is that Brazil is the world's biggest coffee producer, and its beans are in more than 1 of every 3 cups of coffee brewed in the U.S. Every American coffee drinker is paying more, or soon will, as a result. The price of a pound of unroasted Brazilian beans has jumped from $4.50 to more than $6. Says Dan Hunnewell, owner of Coffee Brothers, a specialty supplier in New York. He's trying to keep his own prices steady as long as possible. He said, I will even eat some of the difference. But if the 50% tariffs continue, he's going to have to raise prices pretty significantly or buy beans elsewhere, even if it changes the taste profile. The U.S. has only a few regions suitable for growing coffee. The amount they produce isn't grande. Other countries face lower tariffs, but they can't match Brazil's supply. And as demand increases for beans from alternative sources, prices for non-Brazilian coffee will rise too. Hence the jitters. Kea Booker and her husband Martin Leeper own a small roaster retailer in Portland, along with 2 coffee shops. They're not rich, but they view their business as an extension of their values. She created a pricing scheme where affluent customers can choose to pay more to subsidize quality coffee for others. Its small size means their coffee buys on a spot market instead of signing a contract with an importer, so it has no hedge against tariffs and price uncertainty. Our importers are talking about 10 to 20% increases on the bags that we're purchasing now, but they're also telling us that it could be as high as 40 or 50% depending on the coffee they're buying and the tariffs. Due to the volatility, importers are also buying less for the spot market. We're going to be in a real pickle if there's not extra coffee out there to purchase. Kea and Martin's Coffee has recently raised prices by $2 or more for a 12-ounce bag because of the tariffs. Some customers have responded by buying coffee less frequently. Ms. Booker and Mr. Leeper had hoped to hire a 3rd employee, but that's on hold until they better understand the effect on their business. It's the consumer, the cafes, the roasters, the importers that are paying these tariffs, which are essentially taxes. Oh, yeah? The Coffee Tale shows that tariffs at their essence are an income transfer from millions of individuals and businesses to the U.S. government. Like all taxes, they're a windfall for politicians. In the case of coffee, tariffs don't even mean protecting a domestic constituency. They're a tax on American consumption, pure and simple. A tax on MAGA's forgotten man. We had a caller earlier today mentioned in passing the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. That's been a topic on every program really since it happened, all week long. No surprise there. I mean, this was a major event. It's had a tremendous impact. And today, I remember the first week of the first day of this week, I came in with a couple of other things to talk about, including something that had to do with the wars going on today, and something that had to do with budgetary problems that could eventually spell the end of our country. Issues that I've discussed today on the program. But they've essentially been put off in large part for a week because of the impact of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Walter Russell Mead puts this in some kind of context. The title of his piece is "A Week That Shook the Old Order." A line widely but wrongly attributed to Lenin states that there are decades when nothing happens and then weeks when decades happen. Last week was one of those. Israel struck Hamas negotiators in Qatar, and despite an intensifying global outcry, moved toward a full-scale invasion and occupation of Gaza City. Amid a wave of cyber attacks and sabotage against European countries, a large group of Russian drones invaded Polish airspace. This is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization member. President Trump demanded that NATO allies slap massive secondary sanctions on India and China as the first step in a renewed campaign to force Russia to end its attack on Ukraine. The French government fell after losing a vote of confidence in the National Assembly. The Prime Minister of Japan announced he was stepping down after a disastrous tenure during which the long-governing Liberal Democratic Party of Japan lost its majorities in both houses of parliament. So-called far-right parties continue their advances across Europe. Nigel Farage's Reform UK, Marine Le Pen's National Rally, and Alice Weidel's Alternative for Germany, known as the AfD, all lead national polls. The AfD tripled its vote in the prosperous former West German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, while the streets of London filled with anti-establishment and pro-Trump demonstrators. Only the intervention of South Korea's foreign minister prevented some 316 Hyundai workers from being handcuffed for the long deportation flight from Atlanta to Seoul. Brazil's former president was sentenced to 27 years in prison after being convicted of plotting a coup. Britain's ambassador to the U.S. was dismissed after the publication of embarrassing emails he sent to his former friend, Jeffrey Epstein. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk sharpened questions at home and abroad about the social and political stability of the United States, the country on which what remains of world order depends more than ever. Any one of these events would dominate a week's news in calmer times. What we're seeing today is an accelerating dissolution of the post-1945 world order. It isn't merely that the old order's foreign opponents have combined more effectively to disrupt it. The order's defenders are flailing. There are many reasons for the West's poor performance. The current tranche of leaders, for the most part, can neither defend their countries from foreign foes nor defend the political status quo from populists at home. The muddled thinking of a generation of policy elites who foolishly supposed that geopolitical conflict had ended forever left the West radically unprepared for resurgent opponents. Voters everywhere remained unwilling to support vigorous defense and foreign policies that offer hope of reversing the global drift toward great power conflict. Universities no longer provide the grounding in intellectual, cultural, diplomatic, and military history that enables leaders to plan wisely and inspires them to lead well. As the old order fades, its boundaries become fuzzy, and its foes respect them less. That is what is happening in Europe, where Russia daily tests its belief that the transatlantic alliance is more of a bluff than real. What is happening in the Western Pacific, where China probes the defenses of its maritime neighbors with increasing confidence and aggression. In this context, the Kirk assassination exacerbates American polarization. The consequences will be brutal. Global. America's brutal political competition heightens the chance that the promises of one president will be repudiated by his successor. It also increases the likelihood that an America consumed by internal divisions will have fewer resources and less energy to devote to foreign policy, no matter who is president. The news isn't all bad. While controversial in many quarters, Kirk's example of patriotism, religious faith, and commitment to open dialogue inspired young people all over the country. America's capacity for economic and technological innovation is, if anything, renewing itself. The absurdities and excesses of identity politics have led to such intellectual follies, anti-Semitism, and other forms of hate that even many strongly liberal intellectuals are reconsidering some long-held assumptions, and rising foreign threats are slowly but surely concentrating minds on the need to shore up our defenses. Time will tell whether the green shoots of revival can renew the West and whether newly empowered populists will grow into their new responsibilities quickly enough to avoid disaster. For now, the upholders of the existing world order lack the conviction and clarity of vision required to defend it. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and even the shell-shocked mullahs of Iran will inevitably seek to capitalize on the historic opportunity. There's no reason to suppose these powers will lose interest in probing the West for weaknesses anytime soon. And speaking of probing the West, there's an interesting analysis of what happened with that drone incursion into Poland. I remember having this thought. I said, well, I saw reports on the thing said 19 drones arrived. All these jets were scrambled, etc., etc. And I'm thinking, this is a classical example of using a howitzer to kill a gnat. And today, we hear about this. Officials of NATO congratulated themselves for stopping the incursion into Poland. NATO shot down the drones. The view from Ukraine is different. They see the NATO response as cause for alarm. Russia is not a hypothetical threat. It's a real, huge, massive threat to the Eastern European countries. On that night, it became very real. Poland reported no casualties, but some of the drones flew over densely populated areas. 4 airports had to be closed. Some 10,000 U.S. troops are on rotation in Poland. The Kremlin denies deliberately violating Polish airspace. They say it was an accident. Please. Polish authorities described a Russian and Belarusian online campaign to spread falsehoods about the incursion. What does Russia gain from such a provocation? Information about the Western response. It learned that NATO still relies on scarce, expensive weapons to intercept plentiful, cheap ones. In starker terms, the West lacks a credible response to sustain large-scale drone attacks. If NATO had a better way to defeat drones, they would have used it. This time, there's little point in being secretive, given that drone technology can now become obsolete in 6 months or weeks. Instead, NATO Secretary Mark Rutte described how the alliance called on assets from F-16s to F-35s. The missiles they use can cost $1 million or more. Some drones that Russia threw into Poland were decoys that cost around $10,000. The strike ones, the Shaheds, cost $50,000, or maybe a little more. When a journalist asked General Gunnerwich about this imbalance, he said, when there's a fighter pilot that's in the air, I don't want them thinking about how much their weapons cost. I want them thinking about defending our citizens. But there's a mathematics of war. A caller suggested this the other day, that if you can bankrupt the West by pulling this kind of a stunt. So maybe Putin actually pulled our chain and alerted us to something we needed to know. It's noon. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:06. $2:02. Oh, come on. You fucking bitch. $202, come on.